For my brother Tim and I, it's our 7th time on the West Coast Trail. We've never walked it end to end. That's never been our goal. Rather, it's just to get out here in this wild tangle of seaweed and Sitka spruce and see what we find. Vancouver Island's outer shore is a wild conjunction of rainforest and surf. It's here that the thick closeness of Sitka spruce and salal meet the breathtaking expanse of the Pacific Ocean. Along this meeting of forest and sea runs a strip of shoreline stone, rock, sand, and gravel that's home to a bright array of intertidal life. Seaweed and sea stars, urchins and kelp. This is the world of the West Coast Trail, a 70-kilometer long route between Bamfield and Port Renfrew, and a centerpiece of Pacific Rim National Park. Situated where the mouth of the Salish Sea, the Strait of Juan de Fuca meets the open Pacific Ocean. Tim and I have been coming here for over 20 years. Each trip is a celebration of our lifetime of exploring wild places together. That started early with our dad on spring canoe trips in Algonquin Park, Ontario. Then pivoted westward when Dad took us on a trip down the Nahanni River in 1974. We sought out wild places on a 10-month trip around the world in the late 1970s. For the past 30 years, our focus has been the wild corners of the Salish Sea. But nowhere have we returned to more often than the West Coast Trail, where Salish Sea meets the open Pacific. Our first trip 2 decades ago was a revelation. The trail is through forest and along shore. We loved the shore. Doing the whole trail with its long forest stretches just to finish the trail didn't inspire us. But setting a camp somewhere along the shore and exploring from there, now that was rich. It's been the driest May on record, and the trail, famous for its mud holes, is almost dusty. But we're out on the shore now walking the rock flats. These flats, tens of meters wide in places, are mudstone and sandstone beveled flat by storm waves. Ahead of us as we go is a friendly scatter of tiny shore crabs. Tide pools are the all-stars of the intertidal, and this low tide provides us such a rich poke through all these giant aquaria. Tide pools are exquisite, in part because of their crystal still water, and in part because of the tiny and bizarre marine life that's going about its business. This is the best hiking we know of anywhere, except that it can be hard to cover ground. You just have to have time.
There's a mussel being digested. So is this one.
And you always keep your eye on the ocean. Later in the afternoon, a gray whale surfaces just offshore. While up above, an eagle floats overhead, riding the wind. All this sets our senses on fire. The dance of wind, surf, salt tang, color, and movement. It's a grand sensory tumble. We come to a place where surf-sculpted rock closes in. Then pop out onto a tabletop of sandstone full of potholes. Ooh, this looks interesting. We drop our packs and take a look. A surge channel cuts through the point, and giant heaves of ocean swell pulse in and out. That the kelp can withstand the battering amazes us. Up top are giant potholes, steep-walled and deep. Oh, we gotta get our face masks in there. There's so much to explore here. We're gonna stay put. Tim builds a fire and we get dinner going. A full moon rises. The next morning, we're really keen to get snorkeling. There's a brisk westerly wind blowing, the ocean's rough, so we head to the tide pools and potholes. Tim and I grew up with face masks, and they go everywhere with us. We learned early on that if you stick your head underwater with a face mask on, you enter another world. Isn't this cool? There's a remarkable still in here, given the powerful surf that's just meters away. We head to a pothole right at the edge of the surf. The tide's rising and waves are just barely entering the tide pool. Suddenly, a big wave surprises us. So we get out of there fast. Lesson learned. We head to potholes further back. Intertidal life is bizarre, unlike anything on land. And most of it's tiny. You need to get in close to see the rich detail. On my way back to camp, I paused to rinse my wetsuit under a little waterfalls coming over the cliff. I really do love my face mask. You just never know what world it's going to open up for you. But we're chilled. The wind on our wet wetsuits cools us quickly. So lunch out of the wind is what we need. Tim catches sight of a gray whale just offshore.
I just saw flukes.
An eagle calls from the cliff behind us. There's a white head right at the lip of the waterfalls. Oh neat, it just had a drink of water. And not a moment later, an otter scampers down the beach along a rock wall. What the heck is happening? Whale, eagle, otter, all together. Just magical. The next day is brilliantly bright. with the west wind blowing hard. We look for somewhere to snorkel, but nothing else shows up near camp. So we head along the shore. There's a shallow area protected by an offshore reef that's worth a look. It's bouncy and the water's pretty stirred up from the surf offshore, but it's fun to feel a bit of the ocean's energy. The great thing about snorkeling is that it gets your nose right down where the life is. So different than when you walk across it at low tide. The tide's rising, and the wind and surf are creating a strong longshore current. So we decide to go look for something else. After a while, we come upon a cave. Very, very cool. But it looks like snorkeling's over for the day. The tide's up, the protected areas are gone, and the surf is right up on the beach. But wetsuits are great explore suits, and handy for getting around wet corners. Thankfully, around the headland is a pocket of sand, out of the wind and toasty warm. But way better, there's a waterfall with a big pool. This is the remarkable thing about the ocean shore. Such different worlds meet here. Surf, tide pool, beach, stream, forest, all of them side by side. Tim's having way too much fun. I gotta get in there. Isn't this cool? We head back towards camp and check out the cave we'd found earlier. The next 4 days are full of explorations and wonder. We figure out ways to climb in and out of pocket beaches that are off the trail, which at times gets exciting. The big westerly winds keep blowing and the surf remains rough. We come across the carcass of a dead gray whale, magnificent even in death. And it makes our next sighting of a gray whale much more poignant. Life is fragile. Then we have a magical walk upriver. The sound of the ocean falling away as we enter the deep green of the forest world. A boneyard of forest giants remind us of the rainforests that we hope are still upstream. And every evening, time to sit, reflect, remember. so many rich details to think back on. And then we're heading home. And even through the ache and fatigue of the long walk out, the week behind us burns bright. And already we're plotting next time.
See the sea, I'm like just dead still in here.
But I see a rippled surface out further.
Oh, so do I.
Yeah.